The first time I saw Trudeau was at a tunnel event in Scarborough in 2015. I was intrigued by the way he interacted with the minorities in the community. A couple days later, I watched a video of him in which he, against all odds in his college, defended the unity and diversity of Canada, and I was amazed at how he stood with his friends and allies and how firm and committed he was. He did not take any peer pressure, but truly protected unity and diversity, and those sitting to his right and left, his allies. And then, in the 2015 federal election, we all saw a huge increase in turnout amongst young Canadians aged 18 to 24, particularly young Canadian women, the LGBTQ+ community, and many Canadian minorities also voted for Trudeau. So now, the question is, was Trudeau all talk? Well, you decide. Trudeau gave Canada its first ever highly diverse cabinet with an equal number of men and women, and which included minority and young people. In his cabinet, for the first time in Canada's history, at one time we had many of the most powerful ministries in the hands of women, like Chrystia Freeland at Finance, Anita Anand at the Department of National Defense, and Melanie Joly at Global Affairs. One report reveals that in 2023, the representation of women has seen a very healthy increase as municipal elected representatives in Canada since 2015. Because of Trudeau, for the first time in Canadian history, in our Supreme Court, there are more women than there are men. In Trudeau's time, Mary Simon became Canada's first Indigenous Governor-General. In 2021, Trudeau's government made September 30th the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I have personally spoken to seniors who are conservatives and who do not vote for Liberals. These low-income and uninsured seniors really appreciate the Canadian dental care plan, and I found them very happy with the support they continue to get from the Trudeau government. And why wouldn't they be? As since 2015, the poverty rate among seniors has decreased by 20%. 20%. Also, parents can tell you what they think about Trudeau's $10 a day childcare for families, which has covered almost half of all children in Canada. Then, there is Trudeau's Housing Accelerator Fund, which is something that elected members of other Canadian political parties are also seeking for their own constituency voters as well. And Trudeau's government has launched Canada's first service after service, the first national Veterans Employment Strategy. Now take the federal carbon tax on fuel. All the money collected goes back to provinces and territories, and they can spend it as they deem fit. Through the Canada Carbon Rebate, 90% of proceeds go right back to individuals, and the rest goes back to farmers, small and medium-sized enterprises, and Indigenous governments. Also, the Canadian rural residents receive an additional 20% rebate. The Trudeau government does not keep any direct proceeds from this pollution pricing, and according to davidsuzuki.org, carbon pricing is one of the most effective and least expensive ways to combat climate change. In Ontario, a single mother with 2 children can get $980 from the Canada Carbon Rebate in 4 total quarterly payments. Once you calculate, you will see that young people, single mothers, and low-income families truly benefit from the carbon rebate. You can go to CBC Household Info Calculator page and put your information, like I'm a single mother with 2 children using 200 liters of fuel per month and consuming natural gas. And check your utility bill on page 2. Trust me, you can't be using more than 2 gigajoules of natural gas. Select Ontario or any other province available there and put what you're earning, minimum wage of $17.20 per hour, and you'll see that you benefit from the rebate. Believe me, if you're a family or a youth, use the calculator and you will see that Trudeau's carbon rebate helps you. You need to understand the money is given back to provinces and territories and they can use it as they deem fit. Just the other day I heard, these immigrants must go. Life is becoming expensive because of them. I believe hate is easier to spread. As humans, we love hate more than we love love. So, should we be scared of hate and should we run away? Being scared is fine, but running away is not. Stand and be heard. Stand together and be strong. Let them know you made a stand and your stand was just and right. Stand against hate. The right thing to do is wherever there is hate and lies, don't run from it and leave. Stay there because if you leave, then only hate will remain, and hate spreads like wildfire. So stay there so you can be the voice of reason. Keep calling them out, no matter which platform or which place it is. It's difficult, but it is not impossible. I am saddened when some Liberal caucus members and some LGBTQ+ activists fearful of the others, said that Trudeau must go. This is not the right way. Is this what you would do to your friend and your strong ally? You very well know that when the mayor and premier said no, Trudeau was the first to say yes and was the first Canadian Prime Minister to march in a pride parade. I just know one thing, and that is, if you are a Canadian, no matter what your background is, you should never be scared of your other fellow Canadians. You should never be scared if you have reached this beautiful land. It is our duty, it is the right thing to do to treat all humans with dignity. You really do not know what they had to do to go through to get here. Trudeau has welcomed immigrants. He has always welcomed them with open arms, and he has always treated them with dignity, whether it be Syrian Muslims or Ukrainian Christians or people of Sudan. Trudeau has never discriminated against anyone on the basis of their race, color, religion, or gender. This is who he really is. On the other hand, leaders that you follow who spread hate against minorities and immigrants, these leaders of yours do not believe in what they preach at all. See it yourself. These leaders' most loved ones, their spouses, the ones who are closest to them, their wives are immigrants and also belong to minorities. Even their deputies, their second-in-commands, or their spouses are immigrants and of minorities. Growing up, I always heard it was the allied forces that succeed. They stood by each other, they led together, and they looked after each other. Their unity is what made them strong. Today in Canada, I know the cost of living is increasing. I use an app on my cell phone to find the cheapest prices and then go to stores which do price matching. I use coupons when I shop and try to earn points with in-store cards. I understand that the cost of groceries is higher than it was in 2015. But in 2015, as Trudeau came to power, the oil and gas extraction industry in Canada experienced a downturn due to a decline in oil and natural gas prices all over the world. The price of crude oil and crude bitumen fell 55.1% from June 2014 to December 2015. So even before Trudeau came to power in 2015, the drop in oil prices led to tens of thousands of layoffs, wage rollbacks, and project cancellations. British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba's economies were very badly hurt. And then, in 2020, COVID hit, and that also took a very heavy toll on the world. And if you go to bankofcanada.ca and use the inflation calculator, you will see that the average annual rate of inflation for the last 9 years is 2.71%. But if you really look at it, it was in 2022 that when Canada opened up again, demand for everything increased, and then the world shipping industry and had a global supply chain disruption and shortages. That is the same year when the baby formula shortage happened. This same year, the inflation shot up to 6.8%. But I understand that when you say that we do not know inflation, but what we do know is how much our groceries are costing us now. Today, the inflation is down to 2%. The interest rates are dropping. The unemployment rate that was 9.2% in September 2020, now in October 2024, stood at 6.5%. Canada truly has the strongest fiscal position of any of the world's advanced economies. And you will keep noticing things becoming better every passing month, even though Trudeau does not have a majority. When COVID hit, believe me, without the help of CERB, without the support from Trudeau, we would have lost our house. We were able to keep everything and survive financially just because of the CERB, which Trudeau gave not just to us, but to all Canadians. I know a small business entrepreneur that without Trudeau's support during COVID, he would have gone bankrupt and lost everything. And the relief Trudeau provided on student loans helped many young students. I also do not understand that when a man shows emotions, when a man shows compassion, when a man accepts and apologizes for what was wrong, when a man cries, why do you think that this is a sign of a man's weakness? To me, when you're truly compassionate about something, you will cry on its loss. To apologize for a mistake is the first step towards correcting it, and making sure it is never repeated. By denying the truth, you cannot be saved. There is a list I saw on which many were making fun of Trudeau crying and showing compassion for his fellow human beings. This list began with Trudeau crying at his father Pierre's funeral, then at Auschwitz, then when he cried at the Quebec City Mosque shooting victim's funeral, then at the death of Gord Downie, then at meeting Syrian refugee children, then while apologizing for residential schools, and then while apologizing to LGBTQ+ people in Canada. How can you think that when Trudeau used his United Nations platform to address Canada's historic failings regarding Indigenous peoples, that could be his weakness? Right now, this is happening everywhere. That we as people are denying the truth and giving excuses that wrong was never done, and if it was done, it was because they deserved it. I promise you, by accepting wrong, only good can happen. By denying it, you'll only repeat that bad. And there are very few right now showing us the truth and making reconciliation possible. We as a whole, we, all the people, need to protect them. Otherwise, bad history will repeat itself. It is usually the youth and minorities that always suffer the most. Believe me, I, as a young woman, do not consider a man who cries and shows compassion weak, but is a very strong and great person. Now, when I compare Trudeau to other party leaders, one leader seems very confused. To him, it seems these immigrants, which you and I know, when they talk about immigrants, they're talking about racial minority immigrants, not white immigrants. All these immigrants are bad and are to be blamed for all of Canada's problems. But then his own wife and his own deputy party leaders are immigrants and belong to minorities. This confusion of his and other world leaders like him is very dangerous because to me, that is how in history bad things always happened, and always started to happen to minorities, youth, and women. I am not saying Trudeau is perfect, or that he cannot be replaced, but abandoning him now will have very bad results to all the good work he has done for Canadians, for youth, for minorities, and for women, because right now the person who will replace him will not take it forward, as that person will believe that all these things were the reason why he was removed, and the new leader might even roll back all these things that Trudeau has done. Hannah, the Mayoria MP, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, these two young minority women leaders, had to struggle really hard to get where they are today. But since 2015, under Trudeau's leadership, young minority women like Kamal Khera became the voice of her people, and now she's the Minister for Diversity, Inclusion, and Persons with Disabilities. Trudeau's belief in young people has influenced Canadian people so much that now it seems that the other parties believe that unless their own leaders look or are young, they might not win against Trudeau. Young people, first they told you Muslims are terrorists. Now they're telling you immigrants are the reason why housing costs are rising. Youth, you all very well know, when they talk about immigrants and blame them for housing problems, they're not talking about white immigrants. When they say they're taking away their jobs, they're not talking about white immigrants, are they? Then they're after encampments. They do not see homelessness. They do not see mental health issues. These are the people who need our support. They are one of us. Trudeau has always stood on his principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion, but today we are shaking the very grounds he is standing on. Do not do this to this man. Do not do this to Trudeau. My soul feels that Trudeau is not after power. His sacrifices are for Canada. He wants Canada to attain equity, diversity, and inclusion, making a safe country for all its citizens, and treating with dignity those who are weak and seek refuge. He does not discriminate on the basis of sex, religion, or gender. Just look from where we started and where we are today. From Canada sending crying and frightened children on MS St. Louis back to their deaths, to Trudeau in tears at Auschwitz concentration camp, to him joining his fellow Canadians to mourn the death of Muslims in a mosque, to Canada officially recognizing the International Decade for People of African Descent, to working on Canada's Black Justice Strategy, to Trudeau recognizing anti-Black racism is alive in Canada and we need to be better. Compare that to what is happening around us, from President Abraham Lincoln giving a speech that argued for Black men and veterans to have the right to vote, to Truman Marshall Plan of helping allies rebuild, to now. You yourself decide where they stand today. Trudeau believes in the power of friendship and the value of its allies, and we need to stand behind him. We should not give messages or ads that as if one part of Canada is a better friend, and that is what is happening in the world, trying to appease those who are not doing right. In this world, the countries that bleed together are like families. There's no first or second in the family, all are equal, and we stay together and protect each other when needed. There are disagreements, but we sit together and solve them. We do not go insulting our family members in front of others because then they divide the family and rule. In the end, the family is the only one that suffers. All allies are like one big family, and only together we can take away the hate and defeat any big bad wolf. In the end, we have to decide whether we want to be like French, or do we want to follow a Mussolini. I know you'll see many hateful comments under the video, but this is okay. I do not need to read them, and I can ignore them, but the truth is that I am scared of bullets and gas chambers, and that is what hate eventually brings. But I will still keep telling the truth and facts. So to the question, must Trudeau go? The only answer is not today, not now. We should come together and we should give him the majority, and this will give a signal to everyone that hate will not hurt us, because we stand together and that we believe in equity, diversity, and inclusion. We believe in friends and allies, minorities, and women's rights. We believe in human dignity, and we believe that being an immigrant, being a youth, being a refugee, being a minority or a woman, being homeless or a person of color, or asking to respect my gender and identity is not a bad thing. Let's tell Trudeau that don't falter. We are with you, and no matter what's the outcome, we will stay together. And I would like to tell you what Kamala said in her concession speech. We will never give up the fight for our democracy, for the rule of law, for equal justice, for the sacred idea that every one of us, no matter who we are or where we start out, has certain fundamental rights and freedoms that must be respected and upheld. By treating one another with kindness and respect, by looking in the face of a stranger and seeing a neighbor, by always using our strength to lift people up, to fight for the dignity that all people deserve. To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed, but please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. That does not mean that we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power, and don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it's never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. So you decide why it could not have been good news to stand with a woman of color, a woman of minority, a woman who believes in all that. Well, you just heard. This woman who, if she wanted, could have easily divided the people and could have flamed hatred and instigated people to violence, and said no to accepting the voting results, and said no to peaceful transfer of power. But instead, she chose peace and love and dignity for all. She stood against all odds, was humble, and in the end, kept the country together. Really, tell me, a woman who said all these things is going to make you great again, or a man who says you are thugs, rapists, and terrorists, and that your allies are hurting you as families. I believe such a great woman lost just because you thought the other is going to win anyway, and your vote is going to go to waste, and you then gave yourself an excuse and said to yourself, let's have someone else, because this person's not going to win anyways. Even though this woman's ideals and morals only say love and unity. Hate is the strategy that is what makes them win. Do not let it happen here. Do not let it happen to Trudeau. Trudeau must stay. He must stay. Do not sit at home like they did, thinking the other is going to win anyways. No, do not do that. You come out and vote. Remember, your vote matters.